Now, with some of Liverpool's big guns away at both the European Championships and Copa America, the likes of Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk and Darwin Nunez will be starting their pre-season training a little bit later than others due to the extra minutes that they've played over the summer. The Reds' pre-season plans have not been released so far, but we do know that they'll be heading to the US to face Real Betis, Arsenal and Manchester United before hosting Sevilla at Anfield a week before the start of the Premier League. These games, as well as a likely 2 or 3 more, will be Arne Slot's first chance to have a look at the squad in action. And with some of those first teams making a delayed start to the pre-season, it's an ideal opportunity for some younger players to state their claim for a place in the side this coming season. So let's have a look at 5 young players who'll be aiming to impress the new gaffer when the team flies to America next month. Up first is Stefan Bajčetić. Now, Bajčetić was an unknown youngster before he broke through into the side during Liverpool's difficult 2022-23 campaign. He was one of the few bright spots when he emerged almost fully formed around the Christmas period, when he also popped up with a great goal against Aston Villa. He played as both a defensive midfielder and a more box-to-box type player, as well as also deputising at right back. Now, unfortunately, he picked up an adductor injury in April that ruled him out for the rest of the season, but thoughts turned toward the following campaign, which did not go well. The Spanish youngster picked up a calf injury in September that all but ended the season, with Jurgen Klopp and his team reluctant to rush him back into action. He did, however, get 25 minutes in the 4-2 win over Spurs in the third from last game this season, and the hope is that he can finally put his injury problems behind him and capture the form that made him Liverpool's best midfielder for a short period of time. Alexis McAllister, Dominic Szoboszlai and Ryan Gravenberg will all be starting the pre-season after him, so there is an ideal opportunity for Stefan Bajčetić to lay down a marker, and Arne Slot's preference for a double pivot at the base of the midfield could mean that Bajčetić has the right profile for the new boss. Now, I expect him to stay at Liverpool and push for a place. He's missed a lot of development time while he's been out injured, but we should remember that he's still only 19 years of age. He's technically excellent, and he's got all the attributes needed for a player playing tight spaces in midfield. His one obvious drawback, I'd say, was that he probably needed to bulk up a little bit more to face the rigours of week-to-week combative Premier League football, but that is something that can obviously be worked at, especially as he enters this next stage of physical development. Up next is Fabio Carvalho, a player who arrived from Fulham at the start of the 2022-23 campaign and actually played in 10 out of the first 11 Premier League games, including scoring a memorable injury time cup end winner against Newcastle United. It was clear that he had bags of natural talent, but he seemed like there was no real natural place for him in Klopp's lineup, with him playing on the left side of a midfield three and on both left-right flanks. Nothing really seemed to stick for the lad. Now, he didn't look physical enough to handle it in midfield, and he lacked the pace to make an impact out wide, preferring to drift into central areas. After getting substituted in the 1-0 defeat at Nottingham Forest in October, he only played another 11 minutes of Premier League football for the rest of the term. Now, after an unsuccessful loan period at RB Leipzig during the first half of last season, he enjoyed a much more fruitful time during the second half of the campaign at Hull City, where he would score 9 goals in 20 matches, often playing as part of a front two in Hull's 4-4-2 setup. Now, during his time at Fulham, he'd often play centrally too, this time as a number 10. Now, Arne Slot likes a more advanced midfield playmaker, and if Fabio Carvalho is going to be a success at Liverpool, now this looks like the most obvious route. However, as talented as he is, I'm not entirely convinced he's got the right skill set to fit into this Liverpool team. But if he has a strong pre-season, he can hit the ground running. Now, Kaide Gordon signed a contract extension in May after a season or two, making waves just below the first team. He was knocking on the door of the senior squad back in the 2021-22 season, becoming the Reds' youngest ever FA Cup goal scorer and starting on the right wing against Arsenal in the League Cup semi-final. Now, since then, Gordon has struggled with a series of injury problems connected to his growth, described as a complex pelvic injury, and he was sidelined for around 17 months, which is, it's an incredible amount of time for any player, let alone a youngster going through important stages of his development, and he missed so much game time. This was gone as it seemed that Jurgen Klopp thought a lot of him, and although the Reds boss was reluctant to reintegrate Gordon into the first team during the end of last season due to concerns about rushing him back too early, he was included in training camps in Austria and Dubai to keep him as connected to the team as possible throughout his injury-plagued period. Gordon is a pacey, left-footed right winger, and depending on what Liverpool do in the transfer market this summer, he could be earmarked by Arne Slot as a potential understudy for Mohamed Salah this coming season. I would possibly expect him to go out on loan to try and make up for lost time in terms of his development and lack of game time. Slot might prefer him to keep him around till January to ensure he's back at full fitness, is available for early Carabao Cup matches, and to get a better look at him before finding a loan club with the right profile. One young player who did go out on loan last season was Luke Chambers, who enjoyed a successful time at Wigan Athletic. Now, he would spend the first half of the season picking up first-team game time in the Carabao Cup and Europa League before moving to the Latics in January. Now, Chambers is nominally a left-back, but in his 18 games for Wigan, 9 of them were actually as a centre-back. He also played as a left winger and a left-sided number 6. He'd register a goal and an assist, and if he's after inspiration on what a full-back can do at Liverpool after the loan period, he only has to look at the meteoric rise of Conor Bradley on the opposite side of the pitch. Wigan boss Sean Maloney has spoken how he'd love to retain Chambers on loan for next season. And I think another loan move might be on the cards, as breaking past Joe Gomez, Costas Tsimikas and Andy Robertson might be a big ask. As with last season, he might find himself staying at Liverpool until the January transfer window opens though. Another youngster who has suffered horrendous injury problems is Ben Doak. Now, although he picked up 10 first-team appearances so far for Liverpool, last season was mostly a story of injury, with the young Scot undergoing surgery for a knee injury back in December. Now, he wouldn't play football again that season, but was a surprise late inclusion in the Scotland squad ahead of the European Championships. That European dream was cut short with another injury, but the promising news is that he's already back in training with a view to starting on the front foot when the squad returns to Kirkby in 2 weeks' time. Doak is a rarity in the modern game, a right-footed winger that plays on the right wing, using his speed and directness to affect the game. Doak and Arne Slot will be hoping that these injury issues haven't affected his pace and acceleration, and he is probably the most likely of Liverpool's young players ready to step up and provide Mo Salah a rotation option in the Carabao Cup matches. Doak played in all 5 pre-season matches last year, and he'll be hoping for a similar situation when the Reds jet off to the east coast of America in July.